Harper Crouch's video. Psychopaths or Saints and Psychopaths. Guru Viking. 39 minutes and 42 seconds. I want to explain this one. About 90% of gurus out there that you're going to go to learn from, they're going to learn most of their stuff through hearsay. You know? It was this lineage taught this lineage taught this lineage. You know? Most of them don't actually get a lot of schooling done. Specifically in like math, sciences, history. They might study like literature, theology, philosophy, but they rarely ever hit the science books. Like, even now, like, I've looked around a lot, and it's like 10% or less of these people who meditate or take on contemplative practices actually know they don't know anything about reality, period. They're literally just going off their intuition, you know? But you can tell that some of them are getting somewhere with that intuition. They're starting to come up with critical thinking skills, this and that. That's because it depends on where they got there in their life. So obviously, if they got there younger, they've had a lot longer time. By the time they get to like 40, they can be pretty spot on. You know? They're not going to be perfect. But when it comes to like just talking about regular shit, worms, ants, critters, and shit like that, yeah, they're going to be spot on. They know some shit. You know, it's like, but they're not going to know like the higher level shit. They're not going to know like how cells work or how neurons work or anything about synaptic networks. So you're going to hear a lot of these people talk about past lives. Like even I do it from time to time. I act like it's a past life. Like let's take my Native American thing. Okay. Grew up in Puerto Rico. Now, there was a lot of good advice back then. Can't say there was a practice back then. Got to America, so like I never had a practice. I never had someone to teach me things. But I read a lot of history books, you know? So whenever I look in history, I like to try and place myself in the shoes of the people that lived back then and try to see it from their eyes that way. But, you know, if you're going to get really good at that, you really got to read your history. Like one of the things I like to talk about is the Constitution. So in order to come up with my ability to go back into that shaman's point of view and go, oh, they must have been trying to help him to do this or this or that. Well, you've got to really read about the Constitution around the time it was created and how George Washington and all these other motherfuckers that were busy writing this Constitution and busy in this government, they were having a lot of contact with the Native Americans. They were learning new battle tactics. They were learning all kinds of shit from the Native Americans. Did they ever attribute it to them? Probably not. You know, that's the thing that always got me. They'd go into these camps. They'd come out with all this knowledge, but they'd act like it was theirs. Then they'd talk to their friends back like in the 13 colonies back then, you know, because the natives were their own sovereign state. They'd go back across their border, and then they'd start plotting to take over the Native Americans. But then, in the middle of their plot, they'd have to stop, go back to the Native American camp, learn a few more things, talk a little bit more, you know, get around a little, and then they'd come back and they'd do some more plotting. You gotta read the history. It's just weird that they made so many trips back and forth. And every time they'd say good things, when they're returning from the trip, they say great things about the Native Americans. But then as time passes, they stay in the colony, they start getting more and more venomous towards the Native Americans. And they'll either make a re-trip, just try to see if they can fix that perspective, or they'll just give up and just be like, you know what, let's take the land. So at that point, to me, you know, that's how it looks like. It looks like, okay, the Native Americans were trying to help them with something, and then they got stabbed in the back. See how I did that? I didn't have to rely on hearsay, and I just went to the history books. But of course, here's where we come into another problem. And I got to be able to trust the history books. And the victors are the ones who write the history books, so I can't really trust a lot of what they're saying. I have to look at what they're doing. So, you know, like, while I did pay attention to, like, their movements, I did not sit there and read every fucking goddamn diary that George Washington wrote, or motherfucking Madison wrote, or any of that shit. I'm not gonna read their shit. Whatever they're fucking talking, it's gonna be nonsense anyway for me. You know? Because most people in their heads are nonsense anyway. When they speak, they're nonsense. Like Sam Harris gets a lot of shit from fucking all these religious texts. Man, about the most you'll hear him say is Buddhism, and even then he just like treats them like they were idiots, and he's really the one who found what they were doing and was able to, what do you call it, capitalize on it or something. It's like, dude, seriously? You know what? Fuck it. They did in the past, they do in the future. It don't matter. They're always gonna be doing that shit. But that's a people thing. But yeah, most of these guys don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I mean, you'll be hearing them talking about fucking, they know the answer to life after death and shit. Do they? Fuck no. But in their heads, whatever. Or they might give you like some concoction or this or that, or they'll tell you this will do or this or that. Yeah, there are simpler ways to go about this whole fucking practice. You don't have to go through all those fucking hurdles. There are way simpler and quicker paths on this. But that's the shit we got to clean up now. All this baggage from the past, which is why I'm lucky I did not have a lineage. I did not have a teacher. I went to the library, I figured out how to do it, and I did it on my own. Fuck all that shit, man, because then because it's the authority thing, All of a sudden you become grateful to this teacher, like Harper Kosh was saying, He's like, but I know he's wrong, but I don't want to tell him he's wrong. But I know he's wrong. Somebody comes up to me like that, I'm gonna want to slap. See, that's why I gotta learn how to pay attention when motherfuckers got a question in his head. Like, the minute it appears in his head, I'm like, nah, don't try to hide that shit from me. Because I already know the problem here. The problem here is that all of a sudden, you started looking at me a little funny, and now you don't want to question me. The minute you stop questioning me. This is how I explain it to people. I love to learn. I like to learn. I like to communicate. If you have a question and you withhold it because you think it's a stupid question or a dumb question, something you shouldn't ask, there's no such thing as a stupid or dumb question. Ask the fucking question. Because A, I could learn something from that question. I don't care how trivial you might think it is. I actually could learn something from it. I will break that motherfucker apart. To try to get as much from it. Now, answer your question. Yeah. But you need to ask those questions. Otherwise, I can't get checked. I can't check myself. Even though I'm pretty good at that. A lot of times when I'm saying stuff, I feel a little, I'll check it. Or even if I feel very confident about something I've said, I'll check it. I'll do a look back. But of course, it would be nice. Everybody was involved and nobody was spreading misinformation. I mean, holy fucking shit. Do you know how much faster we could be going if everybody was spreading information as opposed to misinformation? So it's a misinformation issue that occurred. It's occurred in the science fields, it occurred in the news, and it also occurs in the spiritual circles. It's just a bunch of misinformation. Especially with the whole past life shit. Holy fucking shit. How many times people have talking about that one? Because, they really vividly feel it. And you got to explain to them, these vivid feelings are really a result of cultural upbringing, as well as the mind's ability to present information in such a way that you can handle and process it. And all that comes together to create these images you see. And here's where it gets really dangerous. When you start acting like it's real, you cover over some problems that are real and need to be fixed, like with schizophrenics. I don't need you telling people you seeing shit when you ain't seeing shit just because you want to believe in shit, when there are actually people seeing shit who need to be told that that shit they're seeing is not real. That's a schizophrenics thing. It's a sensory overload type of thing. Their senses aren't working correctly. They'll see things that aren't there. They'll hear things that aren't there. And it could just be their unconscious, or it could be just some cross-wiring. I'm not schizophrenic. I can't give you a deep dive on it. It would be nice if, we had a schizophrenic who meditated to the point where they forget who they are and then come back from that on a return, because then they can do the wishy-washy and they'll be able to tell you through direct experience, once they learn how, what it is that's actually occurring in the inside and how it is that these images are actually appearing. But getting one to that level that hasn't been so deeply and affected by culture, by, it's bullshit. Because, a lot of these people do achieve it, but, if they're surrounded by bullshit, all they end up with is bullshit. You know? So yeah, you got to pick up your books. You got to study. You got to learn. You got to read. You got to, put it in. Science is mostly math, science, history. History is big if you want to get a story going. Math and science is where it's at if you want to understand your reality, where you're at, what this is, without getting all confused by how this mind works with images, sounds, emotional body, and all that shit. Because that shit can get confusing if you don't know that it's not really all that real to begin with. Even though, again, like I have a heart, like it has to be something cultural or it has to be religious or something that's causing them to amp up their belief system in such a way that they're actually seeing these things. Because when I went through my meditative experience, I didn't see shit. It actually wasn't until afterwards, when I was doing a whole bunch of shit to drive myself insane, when the insane ideation kicked in, then I started having visual hallucinations. But again, I want to remind you, first time paradigm, scientist, historian. Clean, forgot, remembers, still science and historian, tortures himself, begins to hallucinate. So don't tie meditation to me hallucinating. Tortured myself, began to hallucinate. So obviously, from my point of view, when y'all meditating, y'all must be torturing yourselves throughout. It's the only way that it matches with my experience. So, not sure what religion is or anything else. I know how I did it nice and clean. I didn't have any bullshit in my head. And I just took the experience for what it was. And I knew what I was doing. Concentration, clarity, equanimity, see, hear, feel. And that's pretty much all I fucking need. I don't need the rest of that bullshit attached to it. Because it's superfluous to the task at hand. If I wanted all that other shit, I'd go to school or a library and hope the books are just full of bullshit.